I woke up on a Wednesday morning with a thought on my mind. Is cycle a blessing or a curse? I started thinking about this. In fact, I thought about it throughout the whole day. But at a point I asked myself, what is cycle? Cycle is a series of events or action repeated in a pattern. And if that is so, then cycle has made us to have seasons. And in season, we have the summer, the winter, the autumn, and the spring. So, if we have only winter in a year, I believe by now we'll be in ice age. And if all we have is summer, then life will have been disrupted by a large dimension. Cycle is also observed in day and night. The sun rules the day while the moon rules the night. And this gives us, 24 hours in a day. Cycle. Cycle also gives us the ability to sleep and wake up. Every day, you sleep and you wake up. Now, cycle also is observed in the area of breathing. We breathe in oxygen and we breathe out carbon dioxide. This cycle keeps us alive. Cycle is also observed in the area of menstrual cycle of women, which helps in reproduction and continuity of life. So I asked myself, is cycle a blessing or a curse? Then this came to my mind, habits. I started juxtaposing habits with cycle because habit and cycle almost have the same meaning. So I said cycle is a series of events or action in a repeated pattern. And what is habit? Habit is also repeated actions which are done unconsciously. So if you juxtapose cycle with habit, then you begin to realize that it is possible to form habits by using the principle of cycle. So if you begin to have repeated action consciously, you can build good habits for yourself. A new definition of habit is therefore going to be a series of action repeated consciously. Series of actions repeated consciously. When you introduce consciousness into the actions you are repeating, then you can begin to form good habits. Any bad habit that we actually act out is done unconsciously, wired to our minds unconsciously. When you talk about repeat is a language of the subconscious mind. Now, the subconscious mind is a subjective mind. It is a mind that is neutral. It doesn't have any objection to anything it receives from the conscious mind. When you start repeating an action, then you are hardwiring your subconscious mind. So when we say that habit is a series of action that you repeat consciously, already you have employed the services of the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. Because you cannot build any habit without employing the services of the conscious and the subconscious mind. And that is why for you to develop good habit, for instance, if you want to develop the habit of reading, all you need to do is to read a page per day. When you do this repeatedly, consciously, then you have employed the services of your conscious and your subconscious mind. This was my thought for the whole day. Now, since the conscious mind is the objective mind, it can differentiate between good and evil. That is why your conscious mind is needed to develop a good habit. I believe that you can use the concept of cycle to develop good habits by consciously repeating an action. And if you're going to build a habit, you need to ask yourself, what habit do I want to develop? If you can answer that question, then you can begin to plan a pathway to develop that habit. For instance, let's take the habit of reading. So when you take the habit of reading as a case study, then you begin to read a page per day. If you can do more than a page, fine. But you need to be able to repeat it on a daily basis. This action must be repeated on a daily basis. That is how you can develop the good habits that you have assigned to yourself. Now, the second question you need to ask yourself is why? Why do I want this habit? But when your emotions are wired into the actions, then you have answered the question why. Why do I want to develop this habit of reading? That is very important. If you are able to answer the question why, it is going to sustain you in being able to develop this good habit. Therefore, going back to my question, is cycle a blessing or a curse? I solely believe that cycle can either be a blessing or a curse. It depends on which side you are on. For instance, I just gave you a scenario of how you can use cycle as a blessing to develop good habits. On the other hand, if you are unconsciously repeating an action that is detrimental to your life, then cycle is going to become a curse, because you just use the same principle to develop a bad habit. Because if you have to stop it, then you have to come to the realization of using the cycle as a blessing in developing a good habit. Don't let cycle become a curse for you. Use the principle of cycle as a method and a blessing for your life. By tuning in to understand the consciousness of your actions per day, on daily basis, every time, repeatedly. And when you repeat your actions, you already know that you are already employing the services of your subconscious mind. And when you employ the services of your subconscious mind receives the feeds from your conscious mind. And when it receives these feeds from your conscious mind, it doesn't argue with your conscious mind. It doesn't say if it is good or bad. As long as it is repeated on your conscious mind, your subconscious mind receives these feeds, and then it becomes part of you. Guess what? You and I are product of repetition. How do I mean? We are product of cells, repeated cells that are from your system. Aggregation of cells form tissues. Aggregation of tissues form organs. Aggregation of organs form a system in human body. And so, we are made up of millions of cells, millions of repeated cells. Your mind is not in your head. Your mind is all over your body, just like the cells are all over your system. That is why the language of the subconscious mind is repetition. So when the subconscious mind receives the feed from your conscious mind, then the deed is done. That action becomes a habit, whether it is good or whether it is bad. You can change your habits by consciously repeating the actions that you love. When you do that on a daily basis, then you can rewire your subconscious mind to pick new habits that you can develop, that you can begin to live with, that you can begin to work with, which you can call your own. And this you can say, this is who I am. I am someone who studies. I am someone who reads. I am someone who laughs. I am someone who doesn't get angry. I am someone who is lovable. I am someone who is patient. I am someone who is kind, because you have developed the habit. Don't forget that thoughts lead to belief. Belief leads to action. Action leads to habit. Habit leads to character. Character leads to destiny. So you can change your destiny by ultimately using cycle as a principle for your actions, because actions will ultimately develop into habits. I believe this message has blessed you. Until I see you again, keep focusing on the bright side of life.